than, meets the eye. That's completely, something else. But what I really find out is when a lot of these conspiracy theories started taking a negative connotation in the public's eye was shortly after the Kennedy assassination.
Mm. Well, because the magic bullet, just like there's not a single hunter, that's like, oh, that makes sense. Not a single hunter, but people with a college education like, oh, really? Well, I'm taught that the most brilliant people in the world, right? You might be able to see my my Plato book, right? Even though we know that they're brilliant, you, Mr. Joshua Cameron, at 15 years old, let's have you read this and critique it as if you're fucking somebody worthy of critiquing Plato. Like, what? And so what we do is we actually pervert the idea of the masters.
Sorry, I got something at my door.
Oh, okay. Do you need to pause for a second?
Just for a quick sec. Yeah, that all right? Yeah.
All right. Car has been jumped. Apparently, wallpaper guy needs some help, so you went out and good citizen went and saved the world for him.
Yeah, I probably need to go out and turn off my car eventually. He's still trying to figure out how to do it, so we'll see.
Oh yeah. So and I can't remember exactly what our line of inquiry.
We were talking about the Kennedy assassination in the wake of.
Oh yeah, that's right. And there's no hunter that would be like, hey, that makes sense.
Yeah,
but the thing is college educated people, like we're expected to think of the most ridiculous thought exercise on how it could actually happen. And while that's intriguing, well, then we start to believe our own bullshit. And as I understand, right, I mean, Kennedy was trying to investigate the CIA. Well, his driver turned around and shot him in the head. And that's literally, and that's what happened. And they got like, oh, look at that grassy knoll over there. Get him.
Well, what's interesting is in the run-up and the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination, supposedly, from one account I read, Lyndon B. Johnson went into, Air Force One or, where it was sitting, and then he told everyone to shut all of the windows and stuff in all of the planes. He says, he said something that this has been a conspiracy. This is a conspiracy. So everybody knew from the very beginning that this was a whole conspiracy going in. Yeah. And you think about Lee Harvey and how unassuming that he was, really, and how conveniently, the assassin of the president of the United States was a Soviet sympathizer. So convenient.
Yeah.
With the time and everything like that.
Dude, at the time, hell, we still consider Russia as the big boogeyman.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all Hillary Clinton was crowing about in 2016. Russian pee. That orange madman got his face pissed on by Russians. We can't do that. He likes Vladimir Putin. Like, and what's crazy is they ramped up tensions so much that forced Trump, whether you love him or hate him, to put on sanctions, which easily could have been viewed as declarations of war. Yeah, man, there's and now even I don't know if you notice, if you've been watching any actual real news, not just propaganda, but the generals in the military right now are telling Biden, like, what the fuck, man, we need to back this off. This is not cool, right? Yeah, there's only so many underground bunkers. And there's only so many rich, entitled douchebags that the end of the world can really handle. Because rich, entitled people are the worst of society. They just don't know how to do anything, and they expect others to take care of it for them.
That's true. That's very true. And it's interesting that you brought up the whole Russia thing and how they're still using. I mean, look at right now with the whole situation there with Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, obviously invading another country and all of that stuff, international laws, that was wrong. I'm like, no one's going to be criticizing, that or standing up for Putin there, but we're not getting the whole story.
Oh, in the Donbass, there's Ukrainian Nazis that have been shelling actual native Russians living in Ukraine, and they've been bombing them for I don't know, close to, I think it was over a decade.
Yeah.
And Putin's been saying, "Yo, back the hell off." Well, Ukraine is how we launder a lot of our money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great place right there. I think it's right next to the Baltic Sea. Yeah, it's a perfect place strategically, geographically. NATO's admitted that they don't want Ukraine in NATO, but this is all a dog and pony show. Why? So the Nord Stream pipeline Putin didn't bomb his own pipeline. Biden was actually on, here's another conspiracy. Biden was actually on the news. This is verifiable, saying we're going to stop it one way or another. We're going to stop the Nord Stream pipeline one way or another. And then, oh my God, it got bombed. Yeah, he bombed it himself. Yeah, only a demented old man who shits his pants and eats crayons would think that people would actually buy that story. And then NATO had to come out and be like, yeah, you're right. We did it. We did it. Sorry.
Yeah.
And on top of that, what about the human collateral? It's about to winter in Europe, and they don't have natural gas. So Americans are willing to put Europeans, who are supposed to be our allies, and have them suffer just so that they can gripe to their politicians to fix it. And so we can sell more natural gas. Because contrary to popular belief, I worked for Halliburton. We don't, we talk about energy independence. Well, yeah, we've got a lot of energy underneath our soil, but we actually export it. Yeah, you're cool.
You're right back.
So yeah, man, what I was saying is just that, right, there's a lot of energy and enough energy for us to be energy independent. The problem is that Europeans sell gasoline by the liter at the same price we sell it by the gallon. And so since these interests only care about money, and this is what's crazy, is that the American electorate will fall all over themselves to protect these companies because they provide jobs. And that comes back to George Carlin, who's definitely not afraid of conspiracy theory, but he just said that, Americans have been so fucked over in this country that, they'll be like, oh, I'll take a little bit of cancer if it'll get me a job. Well, I'll take a little bit of my country, falling apart if it'll get me a job. I'll protect these oligarchs that will pervert our body politic so that they can make money hand over fist while poisoning our land if it'll get me a job. And that's just, to cry about the working class guy who's a victim as well. That's just the wrong way to go about it. And this is why I'm glad that I was a dipshit as a progressive out there protesting as much as I did, because it helped teach me that, like, hey, these guys aren't my enemies. Working class people are not my enemies. Yeah, they may have different thoughts, but to demonize somebody over a big, broad idea, that's the stupidest thing ever. And that's on me.
Look what they did. Look at what they did most recently in Canada.
With the truckers.
With the truckers.
Yep. Freedom.
Try to paint them all as being Nazis, and that's not true.
Yeah, they're some of the nicest guys, man. It's insane.
Yeah. And I just think that it's really, really interesting here. You accuse of all of these working class people, and a lot of them, by the way, were diverse too. They're not all white. So if they're all Nazis, then there was a lot of black and brown Nazis in that crowd too,
Hey, I've seen that Dave Chappelle skit.
Exactly. And so, that's just one recent example of just demonizing people. And you see how many so-called intelligent, quote unquote, people fall for that kind of stuff because their most trusted news anchor or their most trusted news outsource just tells them that, and therefore ergo they automatically assume that, hey, these are just a bunch of racists. It has nothing to do with race. It had everything to do with an infringement of invasion of personal property and such, your body and stuff. And yeah, it's just you need to be critically minded. Because, it's kind of like going back to whatever situations arise, like most recently, like with COVID and everything's a power grab.
Yep.
To this day, because of the events of 9/11, there's people out there that get groped and everything when they want to board a plane or take their shoes off, and all in the name of security.
Well, I don't think the TSA have caught a single terrorist, and we have spent billions and billions and billions.
Yeah. And then now, most recently with COVID, they were talking about giving everybody a digital, card and all of that. And that's just, you're very much, on the border there of a social credit system there. Something
Oh,
like
dude, the head of the UN has already been floating the idea of microchipping children. And here's what's crazy, man, is everyone who said don't take a vaccine, like back before we even heard of COVID, like don't take the flu vaccine, don't take vaccines. Well, these were the only people who I've ever heard say that we were going to get the mark of the beast. These are the only people I ever heard that said that we're going to get microchipped. And what the fuck, man? What the fuck? Why is it that the people who are painted as the craziest crazies, and yet their vision is coming true? And a question I posed last episode about, what's the name of the computer program that creates the patents for the FDA? Well, the one that specifically created the COVID vaccine is called Inferno. Well, any sort of vaccine, any sort of drug, the patent number is going to have the year 2020, 60606. But these guys are crazy. Yeah, you're not going to get the mark of the beast. They're crazy. They're stupid. And so maybe you don't believe 666 is the mark of the beast. If you look up 666, it'll say it's the mark of the beast, right? So it's at least in the public psyche as that, even if many people think it's silly and they start jamming out Iron Maiden, like 666, the number of the beast, right? Because it's fun, because that's it, but that's the whole point. Because the thing is what's really crazy, right? So you've got these interests, right? Republicans and Democrats that work the system, controlled opposition. Well, Lucifer and Satan are two different entities. Lucifer is Satan's father, and they're running a gambit, man. So let me take you this thought experiment real quick. Imagine, you grew up in Utah, so you know just how much Mormons mourn their faith, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just how miserable they are sitting there listening to the most boring people talk.
The worst music.
Dude, and just, yeah. And so now think of this thought experiment, right? They're giving a blessing over bread and water, saying it's the flesh and the blood of Christ. So imagine you're at Calvary Hill. Imagine you're walking up Calvary Hill and you see up there is our risen Lord, nailed to a cross. His head is hanging. You can't even tell if he's alive. Once you get close enough, you can see his chest barely moving from his subdued breathing. And as you get there, you have this big smile on your face and you reach up and you strip a piece of flesh from his body and you stuff it in your mouth and you chew on it with a big grin as blood trickles out the corner of your mouth. And then you start lapping it up as he's moaning in agony. Yeah. And you say this is the Holy Sacrament. And then you wonder, why people who follow Catholicism and Mormonism are often very miserable. Well, misery certainly isn't holy. Mourning your faith certainly is not, an edict that is handed down from any holy book. In fact, there's not a single risen master that's ever said, read a holy book. Right? The holy book says, follow your earthly masters as if it were God. Oh my gosh. What? Yeah. Stay in the pen, sheep. Wait for your Lord to come back. I know it's only been 2,000 years, but didn't you know that the Greeks worship Zeus for 4,000? So you guys can suffer for another 2,000 years, and just wait, because the best way to immobilize people is to get them to give somebody else their power. Mm-hmm. And so if you have and you say Lord every time you say the Lord is my shepherd, you're giving your power to Lucifer. And that's, yeah, man, it's mind-boggling to think about. And look, you don't have to believe me. Maybe I'm a crazy person wearing tinfoil on my hat after all. But the thing is really, it's just I want people to think about this. Yeah, and like when I take you through that thought experiment, what does your heart say about that? Like the truth of the matter.